less than 1% of merchants that you go to actually accept stablecoins. The magic of attaching a Visa card or MasterCard to stablecoins, it basically balances out that demand and supply very easily, right? There's going to be demand for stablecoins and they're going to need a way to spend it. It's beyond a $100 billion opportunity.
Hello, welcome back to PayFi mini-series. Today we have Rags, co-founder of KAST. Welcome, Rags.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. We usually start this with asking everyone, what does PayFi mean to you?
There's a broad definition, but I think it's about the evolution of bringing payments that we see in the real world on chain in a way that's usable by hundreds of millions or billions of people. And I think it's a step away from what we've seen in crypto, which is majority using crypto for trading and moving really that more into payments. And that has a whole, a breadth of different ideas that are coming to play, whether it's financing, whether it's consumer payments, etc. And I think we're going to try tackling all of them, I guess, in some way, shape, or form.
It touches so many things, indeed, payments. And there are also a lot of different ways to, build PayFi applications or infrastructure. In Huma's, history has been starting on the EVM side and building some of the infrastructure there. But eventually, Huma 2.0, we decided to launch on Solana and focus on Solana. And you guys did something more direct. You just launched on Solana. What was the reason?
For Solana, I think it's the chain that has the most users. And I believe the most end user applications are built on Solana. It's definitely the one that is most focused on consumer applications as well, which I think is what we need to do ultimately as an industry to really get to that point where billions of people are using crypto.
I kind of agree with it because we have seen an insane amount of growth since we launched Huma 2.0. The previous version was more institutional, so it was only available to institutional payment companies on one side, but also institutional LPs on the other side. And 2.0 kind of like built this more retail front end for LP to come in from anywhere and pick it up in a yield-bearing LP token. And we decided to launch it on obviously Solana, not only for the back end of the payment operations, but also, it has a very active community. Our number of depositors grew by 6x in 2 weeks since we launched. Like, just think about the activity. And in a market like this, it's very bullish. You guys are so ambitious. I love that KAST is like doing this, a card thing, and you launch so many different cards as well. I want to start from that. I know you have other plans going on, and you have other really interesting products that you're building. But what made you decide to actually start with the card product, and how did you decide on this suite of cards that you have? And I'm planning to buy one of them.
Okay. So what I previously to starting KAST, I was with Circle, which is the issuer of USDC, the second largest stablecoin. And so I've been in stablecoins for 4 years or so. And stablecoins obviously started, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, initially for trading. Then eventually we saw it, people were using stablecoins to hold as a dollar banking alternative, and also that they were using it for payments as well, right? But the one issue that you have is that less than 1% of merchants that you go to, maybe it's 0.1%, actually accept stablecoins. And so it's a very simple demand and supply issue, right?
Yeah.
On one side, you've got immense demand for stablecoins from emerging markets, from people in crypto, increasingly just people in general who work remotely, etc. But on the other side, you don't have the ability for them to spend it very easily.
That's right.
Yeah, it's very complex. And so the magic of attaching a Visa card or MasterCard to stablecoins it's a demand supply. It basically balances out that demand and supply very easily, right? Because they can now spend it at 140 million plus merchants.
That's amazing. And I mean, I was born in Istanbul and live in the US right now. And one of the challenges in Turkey is a high inflation country.
Yeah.
And half the world, I think, faces an inflation rate that's basically making people lose value of their money every single day.
Yeah.
And that's what creates so much demand for USD.
Yeah.
And as people are happy, even if their USD is not making a lot of yield, to be honest, because USD is already a lifesaver for them,
Yeah.
Instead of like holding local currency. And especially when you start giving them, a yield component on top of that, they're extra happy to actually, bring their savings onto USD. And stablecoin is one of the easiest way to access both the dollar itself, but also the yields, products on dollar, because otherwise those products are heavily regulated and usually very, very limited, because the governments don't want people to take their, local fiat onto the USD so easily.
Yeah.
And this tension, creates demand for people who want to save in digital dollar. But to your point, the digital dollar becomes so unuseful once you lock it in somewhere. But if you can combine them together, right, that you can save and spend at the same time, but also earn at the same time, it becomes a very powerful, product.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because the last time, I've traveled the world a lot, but funny enough, I haven't been to Istanbul for nearly 18 years or so, 19 years. The last time I was here was in 2006. Being someone of Turkish origin, you'll appreciate the story. But at that time, the lira had just been, was at 1,000 to 1, and had just been divided back to 1 to 1 to the US dollar.
It was 1,000,000 to 1, and divided by 1,000,000 to do 1 to 1.
Sorry, it was 1,000,000 to 1.
Yeah.
Divided by 1,000,000 to bring it back to being 1 to 1.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Is what they did. And they did it just around the time that I visited last. And that was 18 years ago. And today we're back at nearly 40 to 1. Which shows the depreciation that's happened of the currency over that 18-year period. And I have many other examples. I was recently in Argentina, similar issues. I lived in Nigeria once, and similar issues.
Yeah.
So it's just like, when you look at the world, it's very obvious that there's going to be demand for stablecoins, and they're going to need a way to spend it. And that's why the version 1 of our product was a very simple deposit stablecoins, get a card, be able to spend it, and make it available to people in as many countries as possible. And then we subsequently are building, a much more interesting proposition, which is effectively a global digital bank.
I love it, actually. Let's talk about it. So you guys had like all these amazing cards. I love that you have this kind of gold card, and gives you back like some insane cashback, like 13%, something like that.
Yeah, it's effectively like a reward system. We start with pretty high points. Over time, that reduces and becomes something, not so insane.
More sustainable.
Yeah, more sustainable.
Yeah.
It's just to bootstrap the community at the beginning. But the reason why, our vision is to build a global digital bank available to nearly anyone in the world. But the reason why we have these very sexy looking cards is because if you're going to go through some very long corporate mission that's, in my eyes, going to take us maybe 25 years to achieve in its full spectrum.
Yeah.
You need to have a product that is very appealing to people short term.
That's right.
That's not just, you can't just talk about the vision of how the world is going to change in 25 years, how you're going to change it. You have to give something that people find appealing today. And that's why we have these different sexy cards that are
totally. I mean, you have to have a way to go to market, right?
Yeah.
And I think, even the giants are realizing that just launching an amazing VR product doesn't necessarily cut it, right?
Yeah.
You have to figure out what's your way to enter into the life of consumers and the people around the world. At the same time, you guys are also trying to actually bring everything back to the ethos of the blockchain by building a non-custodial banking alternative. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so before I touch on that, let me sort of take you through the 3 stages of the product.
I would love
and how it aligns to our view of the world, right? So today, stablecoin supply is roughly 1% of global M2 dollar supply, right? I think in 5 years, that'll become about 6-7%. And I think in 15 years, it'll be something like 30%. And so we are building products that will solve for as that transition happens. So for the next 5 years, the most used thing is going to be what I would call a hybrid bank. It's a mix of on-chain stablecoins and financial services from the finance world, which includes Visa cards, MasterCards, includes banking account access, etc. So you think about the first product was deposit stablecoins, spend it on a card. V2 is a hybrid bank. You can deposit stablecoins, or you can deposit cash in 100 plus countries, and
Amazing.
it appears as stablecoins, but you don't know, you just see USD. And you can switch between stablecoins, or you can switch between cash and stablecoins. We'll also introduce other payment things, such as like local payment rails for QR code payment. We also will introduce things like payment links. So if you're a remote worker and you need to collect money from a client, you can send them a payment link. They just pay using that link with a card or a local bank transfer, and the money goes straight into your account. So we're building this hybrid bank. What we call it is better than a bank. The reason it's better than a bank is because your bank doesn't give you access to accounts in hundreds of countries. It doesn't give you local payment methods if you go to places like in Latin America or Asia. And so that's our V2. And then the V3, which we've started working on, is a self-custodial wallet. And this is much more focused on becoming an on-chain experience. Mm-hmm. Initially, it'll be a separate product to our KAST product, but it'll also be focused a lot more on investing as well, right? And so what it'll have at the base it'll be a stablecoin wallet. You can deposit stablecoins, multiple stablecoins, USDC, PYUSD, others, on multiple chains. And you will get our stablecoin, USDK, on Solana in the middle. And you can also from then send out multiple stablecoins on multiple chains. So it's stripping away all the complexity of different stablecoins and different chains that you normally have in a self-custodial setup. But you still have a self-custodial. You can still go on chain and see, hey, I've got my actual money and it's in my wallet.
Amazing.
Right? And on top of that, what we're going to add are yield-bearing options. So people can say, okay, I've got my dollars now. I have a list of different products that I can go and earn yield on. Everything from Aave, which is more crypto-centric, to the products that you guys are making and others. You'll essentially have a menu of higher yielding products that you have. And then we will slowly add other things as well. You can deposit BTC or ETH or SOL and borrow against it. You will hopefully have on-chain stocks as well. And all of these things would be available through what we're codenaming KAST-X, which is a self-custodial product.
This kind of like your super app on chain.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, one thing to notice is that there's a lot of things you won't be able to do with it, because the beauty of making this product is that it has to be very simple and very different from a self-custodial point of view. So it's stablecoin wallet at its base, but you won't be able to hold NFTs and you won't be able to trade meme coins and all this other stuff. The main reason is that there's other wallets that are better at doing that. And that's not what we're trying to provide. We're trying to provide a banking style experience, which is extremely simple from a user interface perspective and is highly focused as well. And so we will stay in our lane and focus very heavily of building the next on-chain bank. It'll also have features such as like pay by QR code or pay someone in your contacts. And we're going to make that process extremely simple. So for us, that's sort of like the on-chain future. And then after a little while, we will allow you to have a card in your self-custodial wallet as well. And also perhaps on and off ramps and things like that, which you can do KYC and add.
That's amazing. So one thesis that we have at Huma is that the world of TradeFi and fintechs have figured out what is the best user interface. They figured out, also to a certain extent, what's the best user experience, but they haven't figured out what's the best user value, right? And in a way, if you can create a system that is as good on the UI and UX as the world of fiat, but brings a lot more value, then you have a winning path.
Yes.
And I think the problem is a lot of times, people who are trying to bring stable coins and crypto to billions of people, they're thinking that with an inferior UI and UX, they can do that. However, the friction, for people then becomes so high, and people are not very good at changing their behavior. And when something looks very different, alien, like some of the bold experiences we have today, people freak out because they don't understand what's really going on. So I really love that you guys are kind of like going through this like hybrid, path and giving people something so simple and so familiar to use, but it provides so much more value at the same time.
Yeah, we're highly focused. I think of our product methodology as the WhatsApp of crypto. So if you use WhatsApp, it's I think nearly 3 billion people use it today. But in itself, it's a very, very simple product. The magic that they've done is keeping the product extremely simple and very familiar for an extended period of time, 10 plus years now. And that in itself has allowed them to grow a lot. Everyone else falls in the temptation of adding inbuilt apps and all this other stuff, and then eventually it becomes too cluttery for people, right?
Yeah.
And
that was a political fight, actually. I was working at Meta for a while back in the days.
And, so I worked there too, funny enough.
Oh, that's great. Actually, we might have overlap maybe. But when we acquired WhatsApp, it was a big deal. And one of the biggest friction points was basically, are we going to add all these things to WhatsApp or not? And to your point, like people really, lost their jobs fighting that fight. But I think it was a great fight to fight because the simplicity is the product.
Yeah.
The moment you change it, it doesn't stay as the product that actually, made it this most popular application in the world.
Yeah, and we always, the way that I think about it is separating above the line simplicity and below the line complexity.
That's right.
What I mean that is above the line, when you use it, most customers use KAST. They're like, oh, it's so simple and easy to use. I was like, if you only knew how hard it is underneath to achieve that. We have to do licenses, we have to do so much work in terms of treasury operations and all these things to make it simple. But that's fine. I mean, if customers think it's a really simple product, they tell other people, hey, it's really simple and easy to use. And we take care of the really hard stuff and continuously take care of the hard stuff, but keep the user experience very, very simple.
I love that. So as we're closing this off, I would like to hear what's your bullish case for PayFi in terms of the use cases that you would like to see, and maybe some of them, you're not necessarily thinking of building because it doesn't necessarily fit into the suite of products that you have, or maybe that's kind of like your step 4 or step 5. You kind of like, wish we could get there sooner than later type of products. I would like to hear what's that case for you.
So I think we're in the early adopters phase of PayFi, right? And so like the crazy ideas, which are not mainstream ideas as much as I love them because I'm an early adopter, of things such as like, hey, you can stake your SOL and then you can get the rewards from the SOL to pay for your
the famous buy now, pay never.
Buy now, pay never, which Lily has, which we're building a version of that as well, which I love from an idea perspective, but I don't think it's like the big mainstream one. But the reason I love it is because it challenges people to think, and that's, I think Lily's done a great job of like making people think about new ideas. And that's at the heart of crypto, right? But for me personally, like what I'm bullish on is solving consumer payments. It's really not solved today from a crypto perspective or even a stablecoin perspective. Most flows in stablecoins are either for trading or to send someone a chunk of money. The consumer payments piece has not been done yet. And that is where there is just immense opportunity because the amount of consumer payments is in the tens of trillions.
That's right.
Combined, even if you just look at some of the majors like Visa and MasterCard and Amex.
Yeah, it's already $16-17 trillion at least.
At least, right? Yeah. And then you take the other payment companies. And we haven't, even though stablecoins are big and even though stablecoin transfers are big, the usage for consumer payments in that is actually tiny.
Yeah.
People often state this fact that, our stablecoin transfers or payments is nearly as big as Visa or MasterCard.
That's mostly for trading.
But it's mostly for trading. Yeah. I think those who know. And so I think having a crack at that is can have a very meaningful difference for the world because there's no real unified transfer protocol. Like Visa and MasterCard, of course, are very big in some regions, but then you go to other regions and they have their own. I think having one that's built on stablecoin rails globally is a very, very significant opportunity. I would say if someone figures it out, it's beyond $100 billion opportunity. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rags, for joining us for the PayFi mini series, and hopefully I'll see you at the PayFi Summit in New York. I believe we have some conversations happening there as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers.